45 minutes to an hour. I have a feeling it's going to absolutely fly by with these individuals. Bob Warren is absolutely jacked and a chiseled specimen right now.
He is, isn't he?
Yeah, dude. This dude is super fit.
My better half wouldn't want me to hear that. She thinks I'm a little egotistical from that perspective.
He is super fit. He's looking mighty good. Coach, right?
He's from the Joe Weider days.
I coached soccer at Almar for 10 years. I coached soccer for 45 years.
What are you in the weight room every single day? Is that what you're doing?
She's probably back there laughing right now because no, I walk a lot. I do a lot of hiking and I spend a lot of time outside.
He eats okra and Brussels sprouts.
But, I may pick up a 5 or 10 pound weight about once a week or so, and that's about it.
There you go. Judah Wickower, we're in your hands, my friend. We can start the program when you're ready. Folks that are watching in Scottsville and Albemarle, folks that are watching in Crozet, welcome to the broadcast. We got Belmont in the mix. We love when Belmont watches the program. Of course, North Downtown
that's
as
my
well.
old stomping ground.
I know it is. I think that's part of your influence. Vanessa Parkhill is watching the program. Hello, Vanessa. Eric LaFontaine giving you some props over at the Ben Barbecue in Scottsville.
Man.
J Dubs, we can rock and roll, baby. Good Thursday afternoon, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to the I Love CVille show. Thank you kindly for joining us on an absolutely glorious day to be above the mud here in the Commonwealth and in Central Virginia. Folks, a lot to cover on today's program. Earl Smith is going to join us, the Maverick. I believe it's his 4th rodeo on the I Love CVille show. A stakeholder that certainly gets us thinking when he comes on today's program. This gentleman, a school bus driver with Albemarle County Schools. We're going to get the perspective from one of the most important positions in our community, someone who drives the next generation to and from their places of learning. We will analyze what's going on with bus drivers from every angle with Mr. Earl Smith. We also have Mr. Bob Warren on today's program. He's a student support specialist at Albemarle High School, a coach, a dynamic leader in the school system, and a man who undoubtedly has influenced positively multiple generations of students in our Central Virginia schools. Folks, before we welcome these gentlemen to the program, we will thank some sponsors that make the program possible. Ting Fiber Internet is the crazy fast internet that powers the I Love CVille network. They are fantastic folks at Ting Fiber Internet. David at Skooma Boutique Dispensary is doing great things on the Charlottesville Downtown Mall with certificate of analyses with everything in the store. And of course, Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Integrated Medicine. He's changing people's lives. Who's got your back? Dr. Wagner has your back. Judah Wickower is our director. Why don't we start with the studio camera first, and then let's welcome the gentleman to the program, J Dubs. We have Mr. Bob Warren right here. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. I want to thank you for this opportunity to get on and tell what I feel is going on within the county and how the mandates have affected a lot of us there, and take it from there and just give people an idea of what I feel is going on at the schools.
Mr. Earl Smith here as well. Good afternoon, Earl.
Hi, how y'all doing?
We're doing very, very well. We will emphasize, and perhaps both you gentlemen should emphasize this. This is you offering perspective as individuals and as citizens first.
Yes.
Yes. This everything that I'm going to say is all my personal opinions and my research and stuff, and in no way this is reflecting on anything that Albemarle County has to do with me. So
that's exactly right. And I mean, I've done quite a bit of research on my own, and a lot of pros and cons from the different medical fields, the different areas. I'll mention some of the other sites as we go along, but I have come up with my own opinion. But quite frankly, one of the biggest things that plays a part with me is my constitutional rights and how I feel that's being infringed on.
Which I agree.
Vanessa Parkhill says, I'm looking forward to hearing directly from these guys who are serving the community every day. You have multiple media outlets watching the program. Bob Warren, the show is yours. Introduce yourself to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Jerry. I'm Bob Warren. Like he says, I'm a student support specialist at Albemarle High School. This year, they've placed me in charge of in-school suspension. That being said, I have spent about 7 years at the school, and I've worked in everything from special education through autism with the behavioral kids, I reach out in every opportunity I can to special kids that are out there that may just need someone to listen to what their ideas are and what their concerns are, and try to help them through some pretty tight moments in their lives. And I let them know I'm not just there for the staff. I'm there to help the students. I want to be an advocate for them. I've been there. I coached soccer there for 10 years. And I've coached soccer throughout the county for about 45 years. But I got my introduction by the athletic administrator asked me, she says, when I retired from computers, she asked me, she says, you're so good with our soccer kids, why don't you spend some time working with the school? Because I was a little bored at the time. So I started working there first as a substitute, and got really into the CBI, special needs kids, and CBIP. And then the first year as a teaching assistant, they gave me a one-on-one with a student that I'll tell you I learned an awful lot from. His special needs was a really true lesson to me as far as dealing with people and what their feelings are. And he had a heck of a personality. And then I moved on into the behavioral-based kids, to where students that were, for lack of a better word, in trouble a lot, and I would try to sit down with them and try to find out where the anger was or what made them click or tick, and try to spend some time hopefully giving them some direction. In fact, one of the things I did was I would give them these bracelets I have, which says Coach Bob's Kids on it. And I talked to them about patience, strength, and wisdom, and how those three things got me through the day and got me through life in general. And then actually, when my new batch comes out, it's going to have the word faith on it as well. Because it's not just a matter of having faith in your religion or whatever, but it's having faith in yourself. But self-esteem is a big thing with a lot of these kids, and that was one of the things I was trying to bring out in them. But it's been a real journey. It's been a giving journey on both sides. And these little bracelets here, there's probably 1,000 of them over the last 5 years that are out there. And I've had people contact me saying, I still got mine, Coach Bob. I've had them calling me and saying, I broke mine, can I get another one? But anyway, this has been a real rewarding opportunity for me. And I don't do it for the money, I don't do it for any other reason but for the students.
I'd like to get Earl in the mix. Earl, two-part question. First part, this man's reputation, this man's legacy, and what he means to the community from your standpoint. And then the second part, Earl Smith, is an introduction for you, for everybody that's watching.
Well, Coach Bob, I just kind of met him through a little Facebook group that we got to talking about because of the mandates. And we singled each other out because we kind of both mirrored the same values and reflected on the same problems that we saw. So, and him and I stayed in correspondence and negotiations and just sharing ideas and research and things like that. And that's why I asked him, I reached out to you and said, hey, look, he's a great guy to bring down there if you want to see what's going on. And like he said, he does it for the kids, and he's been retired. You worked for computers back when Bill Gates and Steve Jobs were like babies.
Bill Gates and I are pretty close to the same age, but the first computer job I ever had was wiring computer boards.
There you go.
And I mean, the computers I used to program were about the size of this room. And I mean, I came up through working with minis, working with the mainframes, and also down into the PC line. So it goes way back.
Yeah, he's OG.
All right. And in super fit, we're acknowledging that as well. Earl, let's get an introduction for you, and then gentlemen, free-flowing conversation.
I'm Earl Smith. I grew up here in Albemarle County. I grew up in Belmont till I was 12, and just been lucky to have a lot of fortunate things happen in my life, and just I always speak up for people. That's why I'm here, because I got a hold of you and I'm like, look, I've had several people that don't have a voice, and it seems like to me that's what my calling is, to be the voice for other people and make them feel less frustrated. So that's why I'm here.
Gentlemen, the show is yours. Bob, we'll start with you. Albemarle County mandating vaccinations for employees.
Yeah, they did. This came out about a month ago, I guess now, and they came out and told us that they will mandate the shots by the 15th of September. And the 15th rolled around, they said if you don't get vaccinated and you need to schedule a time to get tested. And quite frankly, with all my research that I've done, I have found reasons that I don't want to. I have a religious reason that I truly believe that my body is the temple of my soul, and that I want to protect it from any of these untested things. And I won't say untested, but I'll say limited testing on vaccines and things like that. And as far as the tests go, I didn't want to do anything intrusive. And the original test that came out, I felt was intrusive because shoving something up my nose was not what I wanted to feel. But that being said, they even came out with the spit test for us. But my whole take on it, after being told that I will take the test, I will take the vaccine, my constitutional rights tell me I will not be bullied into doing something I do not need to do. And I mean,
He's being nice about all this. I'm
yes,
not
I
gonna be
am.
nice. You don't
know,
have
I'm
to
not-
be nice, Coach Bob.
I'm not mentioning names or anything,
No, you don't
but we
have to
all know
mention
who's
names.
saying bullying. But as far as this vaccine goes, I've done a lot of research, and I see pluses and minuses, and I'm very fortunate to be close with someone that has insight into Big Pharma. And I've been corrected on a lot of times, but there are things that I know she stands behind me on certain things, and she feels the whole thing about the push is an important thing to go to bat for. So, constitutional rights mean an awful lot to me. I mean, it's just unfair to have this put upon us, and then we don't need that.
Earl Smith.
Well, and like I said, I think he's being incredibly nice. So, it came out to be that Northenham, or whatever his name is, came out and said, you will do this. And then the school board just, they like did the pee-pee dance and go, oh, look, we get to make a decision and do this. And suddenly they just slammed it on the school system. Well, you know what? There was no thought put into it other than I'm in charge and I get to do this, because they came from the state level.
Yep.
So what happened is, so you put people like Jim Foley, who is an incredible director at the transportation department, and he runs a great team there. So you got a school board that suddenly goes, you will do this. So it puts everybody on point, and they had no protocols put in place.
No.
None. And I mean none. And I don't exaggerate on falsehoods. None. So they came out, we had a Zoom meeting. We had several bus drivers, we had a Zoom meeting because all of a sudden the Delta variant was taking over and people complained that they didn't want to go to the auditorium where the auditorium is huge and holds over 300-400 people. And we could have all been like 6 feet apart, whatever. So we did a Zoom meeting, and a couple of the bus drivers started asking questions about how this was going to be mandated. And then a couple of them actually came forth and says, well, if you're going to force me to do this and you're going to force me to be tested because if I happen to be unvaccinated, then I'm going to give my 2 weeks notice before September 15th. So it came about, no, please don't do that. Please don't do that. Let us just give us faith. We'll come out. Well, bless his heart. I mean, he's trying to get that stuff done, but it's like you chasing a car with a flat tire. You've already created a flat tire, and the rest of them are deflating now too.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody in that type in the administrative positions, I feel like their hands are tied because
They are.
From my standpoint, the principal of Almar High School is the best principal I've ever seen there, in
Why
my
is that?
opinion, because in a lot of times in the past, I felt like the principals were there for the students or they were there for the staff. And this principal is there for the whole ball of wax. I mean, he will sit down and give you time. He takes into consideration what you feel, what you say, and he acts on it. He doesn't just sit back and watch or listen. And then he's also there for the students. I mean, this guy reaches out in every opportunity, and he gets his hands dirty by reaching in and helping out, whether it's the students or the staff. He's always there to help you out. And to me, that's the true sign of a good school administrator. And I mean, working for this man, Darabonham is an awesome guy. And I feel sometimes like what I'm doing, he's going to lose me on his staff, and I feel like I'm putting him in a predicament. But I also see the times when I've sat down and talked with him, I see the compassion in him for what he's doing and the desire that he wished he could help me out from my perspective. And I see, knowing Jim Foley was also my neighbor for years. And I mean, when this all started
Did he mow
coming
your
about,
grass?
Huh?
Did he mow your grass?
No Bobcat is. But one of the things about Jim is that when I would talk to him about his bus drivers, I would see him get really emotional.
He does.
And
he
Jim's
cares.
role is
He's the head of transportation.
Head of transportation.
Yeah, I don't know
Yes.
his official thing, but and Jim, you know what? It's incredible. He's an umpire. He drives for Hop On, and he does something else. I can't remember. He loves hockey.
Yep.
He's an umpire, I think, or the referee in a hockey too. You know, so here's a director of transportation also doing all this other stuff
For the community.
and he's always accessible. And like Bob said, his hands are tied because of the school board. The school board
Yes.
just went, "You're going to do this with nothing in place."
what's the timeline?
Well, so you're talking, what was it, the end of, I think August 20?
In August.
Yeah, so August 28th or August something.
Is the mandate from the school board?
I think
The
that was
mandate
12th,
came down.
wasn't
For
it?
some reason, the 21st of August comes to mind.
Yeah, it was somewhere around the third
That-
week of August, and then
Right.
we had our first. I think back to school was on the 28th or something like that.
Right.
You know, for orientation for school. No, it was the week prior. That's right. So it was the third week because
Okay.
that's when we got to pick up. So that was around the 16th or 17th. You got to pick up the bus, and then
Right.
yeah. So
And I mean, what's really been, so what I feel is going on within the schools, it's really interesting because I hear a lot of what's being said in the bus drivers. We have a few of us that are working together on this whole thing. But from my perspective, I've seen a couple of my peers that have had direct contact with either human resources or with the administration, and they're being given direct, you need to schedule your test. No one has told me that yet. And I mean, sometimes I feel like they're just putting it off, hoping I'll change my mind. And I actually sat down with our principal the other day, and I just basically said, this is my final answer. I know I put you in a predicament. And he didn't ask me this, but I know I've been approached by other people that say, well, don't you feel like you're hurting the students by not being available to them when you have been? Because a lot of them have really relied on you to come to and help you out and everything.
virtue signaling. Excuse me.
So-
Virtue signaling.
So what's really interesting is that my whole approach on that was, at first I listened to him and I thought, well, maybe I am being a little selfish, But then it came to my perspective, am I really? Because I'm standing up for my constitutional rights, which in the long run will affect these students. And if things start being taken away from them now, there's no telling what they're going to lose in the future.
Well, you're setting a good. That's the same way like the way I run my bus. I tell all these students. I don't call them kids or children. I just say you're young adults. And this
Exactly.
and these are the rules of the bus. I am not a overzealous bus driver. I'm 6'2" and a big guy, and I've got some kids are 6'3" or 4. They get on the bus, and you try to put me, and I'm up in there like this. If their leg is out, you've got some bus drivers that scream at these kids and write them up because their leg is out in the aisle. And I'm going, where
Yes.
do you expect them to do? We bend over backwards for any special needs kid and send vans or bus. But what if you got a kid that's 6'5" and 350 pounds? You're going to put him on a bus and his head's dragging
Yeah.
That's not right. So, but I mean, that's another issue. But
I'll bring that up. A lot I want to bring up on the bus driver topic. I want to get back to this one. The question's coming in from multiple people, including a couple teachers. We'll acknowledge Scott Ward for watching. We'll acknowledge a lot of your friends that are watching: Megan Brooks, Xavier Johnson, Steve Rickman, Emily Borders. You have 3 media outlets watching the program right now.
that's 3 bus drivers.
Gentlemen, are you fearful of losing your job?
Well, here's the way I feel about that. So the mandate right now, even I don't care who you are, but it is against OSHA standards as
Yes.
of right now.
Yes.
Just like when they came out to media and says we have FDA approval of the vaccine. No, you do not. It is still under emergency use. The conformity or whatever, the new one's coming out. It's supposed to be coming out in October.
Yeah,
which they
because
haven't
that
even-
one's not even readily
it's
available
not,
yet.
It's not even made yet. But
So
that
what
is
you
the-
are getting is the old vaccine.
Well, right. So that's what my point is. So it's like we're going ahead months making these clarifications when they're not clarifications. They're still muddy water.
Yes.
So what's happening is you're still going against OSHA standard, and Bob made a good point. He told me, and he can probably show some support for that. But Albemarle County is the only ones that are doing this mandate and forcing you to be tested.
The only one in the state.
A state of
the
Virginia.
only county schools in the state that are making these mandates.
Right. So you're dividing your core. You're dividing your crew, right? So you had, the way I understood it in the beginning, you had over half of transportation that remained unvaccinated. Okay. So if you're just generally saying if that's 200 people, you got 100 folks
Amen.
that you're logistically going to have to weekly test. That's a nightmare.
And that's the cost of the taxpayers.
What was that just came in the paper? Was $70,000
Yeah.
a month?
Let me point out something. I did have an administrator come to me the other day, and I don't know if they talked to Mr. Bonham or not, but they basically asked me if they were going to lose me. And I said, well, that depends on the principal. And they turned around and said, well, we can't afford to lose you. You have such a big footprint in this school with the kids that you've been able to affect. We know that you make a difference. And I said, well, I appreciate you saying that, and I love what I do here, but somebody needs to make a stand. And I feel that if it's not someone that is making that stand that can carry that weight, then it gets lost in the shuffle.
Well, I think you and I both are respectively being responsible.
Amen.
And being respectful. And,
I mean, we're looking past the personal point of it.
And that's
what's
and I
important.
am too.
And, I think one of the things that kind of drew Earl and I together was the fact that we are both representing the students. This isn't about me. If it was about me, I wouldn't even be working there because I'd be off gallivanting around, being retired and having a good time. But I saw the need in the schools, and it's still there. And we've got 1,950 students, and
at
Albemarle, and our behavioral program only addresses maybe 15. Now, if you ask me my personal opinion, we've probably, I would grant to say 20% of that student population needs a lot of assistance, and we're missing a boat on it. And I see them falling through the cracks. I've had it come to me in the past, different administration, to whereas at the end of the year with the seniors that are not going to graduate, and with even athletes who aren't going to be qualified, I've sat down with them the last month of school personally and helped them work through getting their grades up so they could graduate and so they could play sports the following year. And I don't see that in everybody. I see that in some of the other teachers. There are some really good teachers at Albemarle High School. I love working with them, and they know they can count on me and rely on me to support these students. And they do the same. And to have someone like Earl who greets these kids as they're coming to school and greets them again when they're getting off the bus. He'll probably tell you sometimes they get on the bus and they're just in such a bad mood. You got to turn that around. And when kids come into my in-school suspension program, first thing I do is I set them down in a chair and I ask them to tell me their side of the story. I don't even have the referral in front of me, but I want to hear what got you in here. And then the first thing I ask them when they're done telling me is, what could you have done to make this have a different outcome? And by the time I'm done with them, they understand that they're young adults, like we mentioned. They're in control of their happiness. If they let other people involved in their happiness, it's because they allowed it. And that's what reaching out to the youth is understanding where they're coming from and teaching them how to accept responsibility for their own actions. And that's important to me.
Well, and like he's saying too, it's. I just mentioned this morning to my lead driver and our ATS, which is over our lead driver, and she runs the Southern Feeder part. So, and I said, the kids that I have, I just treat them like they're mine.
You're just a good person, man.
Well, no, thank you. but like he says, in the morning time, I'd look at them and say, "Oh, good morning,"
Yes.
and I'm all bubbly and happy. They don't hardly ever say good morning. Once in a while they do, but then I'll call the parents, or like when I called this year to let everybody know what time I'm going to be there and stuff. "Oh, Mr. Earl, how you doing? So and so. I know
Amen.
She never talks to you. She never says a word, but she always says, Mr. Earl always tells me good morning." and he always tells me, have a nice day.
You know, one of the things when the mask mandate came out is I greet traffic in the morning, and parents always comment about how I'm always smiling and having a good time. I mean, I've created 2 scenarios to where every Tuesday is tie-dye Tuesday.
There you go.
If you look at my posts and everything, on Tuesdays I wear tie-dye, head to toe sometimes. I went one day and I had shorts, socks, shoes, everything was tie-dye. And then on Thursdays,
Rodney Knight, if you're watching, he could use some
I need some new tie-dye.
Yeah, Rodney makes tie-dyes and has his own company.
I think
he went
he's
to high
at
school
our,
with me.
He's at our Tuesday farmers market.
Yes, little
Yep.
Rodney, yep.
But the other thing is on Thursdays, I've started this thing called Overall Thursday, because living in a farming community, you know, not all the time do they get any kind of recognition. So I started wearing overalls on Thursday and saying, I'm doing this for the farmer. Well, the next week I changed my hat. I'm doing this for the mechanic. And every Thursday I change. I have a railroad outfit that I wear, my railroad hat and everything else. And unfortunately, I forgot today was Overall Thursday because I thought it was Monday.
I wish you'd have said so, because I'd have brought my bibs up.
I would have as well. I would have as well. Let's acknowledge some comments, okay? You guys
Okay.
are getting a lot of positive praise. Jordan Shiflett.
Yeah.
I'm a mechanic for Albemarle County Bus Garage. I've driven many times, and I've gotten attached to some of these kids, and I feel like they are mine. More comments coming in. Amy Harlow, you guys are having an amazing impact on the kids' lives, even if they don't express it to you all. Emily Borders, I love what I do. My 2 sons, as well as myself, went to Albemarle High School. I love my students.
Emily graduated with me. She was a year ahead of me.
That's right. John Signoretti,
Yep.
watching the program.
From
your friend.
Michigan.
From Michigan. Literally.
That's
from
he got.
Michigan.
Wow.
That little interaction with someone, even if you're not directly involved, can make that difference today and going forward. Showing them you care goes a long way. Multiple folks, including Amy Haney, are saying, imagine what else you could do with $70,000 a month and how it could be allocated. You got the Richmond Times-Dispatch on today's program.
Well, and I think Coach Bob will tell you too, it's like those kids that get on the bus, or any of the kids, because I do a lot of relief driving during the day too, because Dispatch can trust me. You know, I've only been there 3 years, but since growing up here, they'll go, Earl, can you take care of this run for me? And then my lead driver is so awesome that she goes, well, you go do that, and then I'll be back for high school, because I only have a high school run. So, but they'll give me something, and I'll look, and if I don't know exactly where, I'll look on the Google. But I really try to do what I can to quickly become accessible to those kids, and to show them that I'm just the cool bus driver, you know. And if a couple of them that I've seen, if I don't know that their name or I've seen them before, you know, hey man, you rode me when we went so and so, and you make that association. So, and the ones that I'm saying that get on quiet, you know, like I've got a bunch of 9th and 10th graders now. They don't know me, but I tried. The biggest thing, and he will probably agree to this point, is I start using their name.
Amen.
And I'll start going, hey Jerry, I like your new haircut today. You know,
you.
and
Thank
they're
you
going
very
to do like this, and they go, oh my God, what is he doing?
I'd like to share a couple. You know, to me, this is the most rewarding job I've ever had. I mean, working in computers, I met some amazing people. I remember when Apple first came out, and working with the people.
And he didn't buy stock.
And working.
Well, I don't know if he didn't buy. We should
Well,
grill him on
May
that.
have.
Woo.
No,
Feel his-
well,
feel
anyway.
his leg, Jerry. Feel
Well,
his
if
leg.
I did, I lost it all in the divorce. Okay, but anyway, working at the school, the rewards are phenomenal, and I've never felt so good about things. But I'd like to share a couple situations with you. One of them was one of my soccer players emailed me one day, and he says, Coach Bob, he says, I wanted to let you know that in my English class, this was his 3rd year in college, he says, we were supposed to write an essay on who was the most influential person in my life. And I wrote it and did a presentation about you. And I mean, it touched my heart. And this is a young man that
from crying button. He does.
this is a young man that went on to become a soccer coach over in the Valley now.
That's
and
cool.
I mean, he shows up at one of our games one day, and he's got his whole soccer team that he wants to come meet me. Well, unfortunately, we got rained out that day, but at least I got to meet some of them. But I had another opportunity, another soccer player, young man came in from El Salvador. A lot of his family was murdered by the gangs there. Wow. So he comes over here, And I got to be honest with you, my feelings about immigration have changed over the years. But this young man grabbed my heart from the beginning. And his senior year, he came to me at the beginning of senior year, and he said, Coach Bob, he says, this country has done so much for me that I want to pay back what they've done for me. And he joined the Marines.
Wow.
And he contacted me the other day, and he said, Coach Bob, my 2 little brothers, they're twins, are there now. Can you keep an eye on them?
That's amazing.
And excuse me if I get emotional, but
Please do.
I love these rewards. And I mean, I work the parking lot, and I'm out there front, and some people are screaming and yelling at me because I won't let them stop in the middle of the road or whatever. But then people pull up, and they hand you a Starbucks card and say, this is because I appreciate what you're doing here. I mean, I walk into the building, and one of the ladies left 4 pies there for us people that work. And I'm going, people do see what we do. They do appreciate it. And those rewards are far more rewarding than receiving money or anything to me.
Well, how do we, your impact is immeasurable, and I'm seeing it with the comments that are coming in about you. We'll highlight some of the folks that are giving you some props right now. We'll acknowledge Barbara Nestor and Mike Nestor, both watching the program.
High school people.
High school folks watching the show. You got 4 states on the broadcast, Crozet, you got Albemarle County, you got Earlysville on today's show. Of course, Scottsville on the broadcast. Bob, how do we keep you in school? How do we keep a mandate, the only school system in the Commonwealth, Albemarle, that is mandating their team members get this vaccine? You, for religious reasons and also for constitutional reasons, choosing not to. How do we keep you making a positive impact in these schools and not losing this job?
That's a good question.
You got to speak up. Let him think a little bit. And let me hop.
Well, let me say one thing. As far as I told you, one of the administrators came to me and they told me, they said, I truly don't believe we should ask you to be tested unless you show signs.
Exactly.
And I agree with that. If
There's
I showed
tons
signs
of doctors and scientists now are coming out past 2 months have been.
Yep, and you know
talking about that.
that's one thing that's always bothered me is people say, well, don't you believe in the science? I throw my hands up and goes, whose science? It changes constantly.
Well, that's what
Plus,
science is. Science
I
is
know.
what if.
That's why
Yes.
we have science. But yes, I do believe in the science, but both sides of it. I don't just stop because it's what I want to hear. Tell me what I don't want to hear and tell me why. But as far as to go back to your question, I truly believe if they roll back the mandates and said, if you show symptoms, I mean, I wear a mask, not because I believe in it, but because I respect the people at school. And the mask I wear now, because I cannot show my smile, is a mask of my beard with a smile on it. So, I mean, if you've seen my pictures the last couple of times, I've had people comment about my mask. They still see my smiling face. But, you know, to keep me there, they'd have to roll back the mandates.
You know, I'm to the point where, like, I'm a reed. I've always learned to be the reed and bend in the wind. It's time to be the oak tree, you know, because it's like, who are you to tell anyone how to take care of themselves? I mean, with this vaccine, and mandate it, and then, like he said, to tell us that you're going to divide your staff, and you're going to, you know. So here's a story. 2 people that work over at the Albemarle side called me, and one of them, she wrote me on Facebook, and she says, I'm crying because I had to go get tested at a tent out back in the parking lot.
I remember that. Yeah.
While she goes, so I'm standing there out in front of everybody. There is no, privacy.
Yep.
Yeah.
She goes, and then there's 2 lead drivers who are very vocal about their politics and how they feel about, if you unvaccinated, don't get close to me and you should be fired, really. I mean, that's come out of their face. To make that woman who's got a family and to stand there and have them glaring at her while she's getting a procedure done that she really doesn't want to do because she already had COVID. She actually went and got tested. She has antibodies from 8 months ago when she had COVID. We have probably, I've been contacted by 7 employees that all went and got tested and they have antibodies.
And when I went and got tested, because One of the reasons I did is because I've been there at the school during all open times. Back when everybody else was on virtual, we'd have, in my class, I had anywhere from 5 to 16 kids in my class that didn't have internet. So
Really?
during that whole time, I sat there with them one-on-one because these kids needed attention.
Well,
And so I've been exposed to it, in my opinion, at least a dozen times.
Right.
And for me, if there were
he
times
takes-
when I
he's-
wondered, do
he's
I
old
have
Hulk Hogan. He's jacked and he's taking his vitamins.
Well, and
And believing
this
in
is
the Lord,
true.
see? So
Yes, that's true. But when I went to
Should we get the Ric Flair woo from you?
Yeah, you need one of those on that button.
I know.
what I wanted to do was, I said I may have had the sniffles one time, so let me go get my antibody test. So I went in and I had it done, and I don't have them, which means I haven't had it. So I started thinking, well, why? And I have done some research to know that things that build your immune system were vitamin A, vitamin D3, and K2. So I started eating those like
Do
candy.
you
In
easily
fact,
do you easily catch a cold or the flu?
Well, not really, but there was a time when the flu did me in for like 9 days, and that was a long time ago.
Well, so that's when I'm. So that's
So
what
normally I
asked you-
don't.
Right.
So I have pretty much a natural immune system, probably.
Well,
but
your
it
immune
doesn't
system,
show.
right? So not associating this deadly virus with a cold or flu, but it comes from the same family.
Yes.
So you find, like, I am not susceptible to colds and flu. Last time I had the flu was probably when I was 24, and I remember that's it. But when my father, he had the H1N1. My ex-wife got it. My son didn't get it. My mother didn't get it, but all three of us got sniffles. I'm a little prone to bronchitis because I have bad sinuses. I didn't know, allergies. But past 4 or 5 years, I've learned to control that. I have not had any sniffles or stuff. Things that have plagued me growing up or whatever, but due to allergies, I've learned to control.
Yes. Same here. I mean, I've had
You and I talked
sinus
about
problems.
like
I mean,
saline. You and I talked about doing saline.
Yeah.
I started really sniffing saline solution twice a day. It keeps my sinuses clear, and guess what? I don't have any drainage, which does not give me an infection in my chest.
And see, I do have the drainage. So I was telling Jerry earlier that I've been using something called Alkalol for 20 years, and I haven't had a sinus headache since then.
See, so that's the part we're getting on with the vaccine. It's like, so you've got these people that approached me that said, wow, I have antibodies, I can prove it, but I still have to go stand in this freaking line and have people glaring at me and then either spit, which they don't have the spit test yet. They promised they're getting.
Actually, they do
Did
at
they get
the
it?
high school.
Okay.
So-
But in the with the nasal swab, it's a non-invasive one. It doesn't tickle your brain, but it's just like he's saying. It's like, why do I got to go get tested
If I don't have any symptoms.
if I'm not having any symptoms?
Let me throw some stuff to you that's coming on the feed. First, we'll acknowledge viewers. Again, the media's all over this here. Louise Hicks says Earl is the man. We're getting comments from Carrie Kimbrough. This is what we need to hear. Emily Borders has some comments. She said, Earl, I did have my first testing this morning at Western Albemarle High School, and believe me, I prayed over it, and I was very nervous, but I did it. So let's go the school bus driver perspective here. I've said on this program that this position, just like I've said on this program when I've caught some heat when I stand by the police, I've said on this program that the school bus driver is an absolute hero right now. We are getting
Amen.
in tin cans with children with often not the best ventilation. You're driving students to and from the places of learning where their minds are molded. You're often the first face they're greeted. You are the first face that greets them when they leave their parents and their home. You are underpaid. You are underappreciated. You are currently understaffed, so you're working harder than ever before. Give us the perspective of what it's like to be a bus driver during this pandemic and the value or lack thereof that you may be feeling from staff, from leadership within the school system.
Becoming a bus driver is a great thing. Albemarle County trains you. The problem, I look at this through a business aspect. It's not just a personal thing. What being a bus driver allows you to do, you get a route. You're not a teacher, but you get a contract like a teacher. You get a 180-day contract. Okay, so that's why people go, oh, it must be nice to get paid when you're snow day. Well, because I have a 180-day contract. I agreed to work 180 days for this set amount of money during this set amount of hours, right? So you get that. So then they give you a manifest for your route, and that manifest includes your kid's name, the phone numbers, the addresses, and your route and where you're supposed to pick up at. All right. Those manifests, when I first got handed, and still today, the people that create in routing, Renee Duval, she is head of it. She is amazing and rich, and they imagine this: during the pandemic when we shut down and we had the virtual school and where they would go on Mondays and Wednesdays and Thursdays, Tuesdays and Thursdays. All right, so Renee and her staff. Now you imagine this: they had to come up with not one, not two, but 4 different routing accordingly to what stage we were in. So whenever the governor or whenever they said we're in stage 4 and then now we're in stage 3, so now they had to redo the routes again. So can you imagine, per what stage you're in, you had to make routing. And now you're talking, they bragged, I don't know how many kids we had during the pandemic when we were shut down, but like the first day of school, we had over 13,000 kids that came to school. So, but on those manifests, and here's where I'm going to tell the parents that you guys got to be more proactive in what your kids do in school. The manifest, I have students that are high school that I just took home the other day that I showed the young lady. I said, where is this picture from? She said, that is my 2nd grade picture. She's in 10th grade.
Yeah.
She don't look like that no more.
Mm-mm.
You know, a lot of the phone numbers when I call, the phone numbers are not even valid anymore.
Amen.
So, and then I asked, I'm like, how come these aren't, you're giving me something that is like a Bible. And I have to look at it, and it has everything on it, like I said, the general information. Then it also has if you have allergies, if you have any behavioral issues, and it also has whether you need supervision getting off the bus.
Yeah.
Now, you try to drive a 40-foot bus that's 10 tons, full of 45 kids, and somebody hands you something like that that's front to back, and I've got to drive, and I've got to look, and I've got to see, and I can't see Jerry Miller's face, and so I'm looking in the mirror like this. I don't know who you are. And I got to holler, hey, Jerry. And if you got your headphones in, they don't listen.
You know, we have a very similar problem because when I worked in security, even now, I was notified on the radio. I say, can you find this particular student? You can come by the office and pick up a picture, and you pick up the picture, and it's from when he was in middle school.
Right.
And he looks nowhere near that.
So, but don't blame the school for that because, you parents out there need to be more proactive in making sure that everything on your kid's file is up to date, and I don't give a rat's behind if you're divorced or you don't get along or what, then one of y'all be the grown-up.
Amen.
And go out there and make sure and call the school and say, can I see the current information on my student's roster that's being handed to the administrative, the staff, and the bus drivers?
And quite frankly, the technology's there that a parent should be given the option to go in and update their students' information, picture and everything. I mean, if I go in there and I see it's from the 2nd grade and they're in the 12th, come on.
And they could be per approval. It
can go in there and then an administrator reviews it to make sure it's.
That's not difficult.
No.
Well, and seeing Bob and I don't know. Like I have never asked Renee if that's the way that I don't know if that's.
But quite frankly, let me just say, the problem there is not the administration, but you think we don't have enough bus drivers, but there's not enough people even in the technology department to stay up on it because sometimes.
Yeah, I think the one guy, and his name Earl as well, because I keep getting all his emails.
Earl's cool. Earl's cool. Anyway, because I work really close with them because being in computers, I do have an interest still.
You see here, Earl's cool. That's 4 letters too. Earl and cool.
Cooler. But the thing is, we do have the technology there, but we don't have enough people to cover. Sometimes I used to be on Power School, whereas if I have a student show up and I need to know what he's working on, make sure he's getting his work done, I could go in and access his schedule, see what his grades are, and I would know he needs to work on these, and then I would sit down and work with him. I used it all through the COVID situation. Well, when I came back, I don't have that access anymore.
Right.
I've requested it because being in school suspension, I have more of a need now because these kids will come in there sometimes. I don't know what my schedule is. I don't know what grades I have. And yeah, it's early in the year, but so if I had access to that, what I do, first thing is when they come in after talking to them, I get on my computer, send an email to every one of their teachers if I have that information, and say, what does this person need to do in here? Because in-school suspension doesn't mean you don't get to do work. It means you've got to know what your work is, and it's my job to make sure you're working on it. And I'll tell you, that combined with the fact that I make them feel like there's somebody there to help them. I had a young lady in my class this morning, and she's been in there for 2 days, and she was diligent to get her work out. And I know when she came in there, she was crying and angry and mad, but she was productive. And I went, wow. I even complimented her and told her, I said, you are an ideal student. Keep up the good work.
You value them. You give them confidence and self-worth.
We need to know what makes them angry. We need to know why they're upset. Sometimes, and it's a lot to do with their peer pressure friends. And you talk to them about the bracelets and how to deal with peer pressure with using patience, strength, and wisdom. And you use examples that they're giving you to express that.
John Sigarnetti, who's watching, he corrected us in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He said, I was a database programmer for Albemarle County Schools. That's what I said to him as well. He said, I grew up in Brooklyn, so I'm a Giants fan. But he's watching in Green Bay. He says this, I was a database programmer for Albemarle County Schools in 2010 to 2012. I brought up these infrastructure and digital improvement needs then, and it never got traction.
Well, come back.
Yeah, come back. We missed you, John. This is for Earl here. So you have a lot of your fellow bus drivers are watching right now. And they're giving you props, and they're asking you to continue speaking up.
Amen.
So I got a multi-part question for you.
Okay.
Why do you think there is the bus driver shortage going on? I think I know the answer, but I want to ask it anyway. Probably many reasons why there's a bus driver shortage going on. Second part of the question, there was an article in yesterday's Daily Progress, which sounds like you read, a student who misses 10 consecutive days of school in Albemarle County school system, 10 straight days, loses their spot on the bus. That was in yesterday's article.
Yep.
You miss 10 straight days, you lose a spot on the bus. Your thoughts on the impact that rule is going to have on schools and parents with decision making. And the third part of this question, and I'll keep them in order for you, is this $2,500 bonus that's being offered to attract drivers. Is that enough to gap the shortage?
Well, let's go back to, all right, so I basically told you when you become a school bus driver, this is the things that you put up with, okay? All right, so to carry through that, like when I first started, I was driving out of Greer, the elementary school. Well, you had my one stop at Hessian Hills in Georgetown, you had 25 kids get off. Majority of them were Hispanic, could not speak English. I had a lot of problems. I didn't know who was there. You're looking at your manifest and you're trying to learn these people that are allowed to pick up these children. And you go, hey, what is your name? And they go, no, see, I don't speak Spanish, I'm sorry. I'm not making fun of them, but I'm really trying to keep this kid safe.
Need a Travis, the translator.
Well, so here's the problem. So every school is different. So the Albemarle side over there, the Greer and all that, and that you have a tremendous amount of kids, versus like where I'm driving out of Monticello, the only one that's close to that is Mountain View, which I have to make a side note and go, we changed the school name to Mountain View, but it's still in the Cale district. Yeah. So what did you accomplish? Anyway, you have 5 buses that go to Southwood from Mountain View. We have 3 from Monticello. So you've got, and I'm telling when I do like one of their, like Emily Walker Borders, that's where she goes. You have 45 kids to 50 kids, 3 to a seat out of Mountain View. I mean, the bus is packed. And you have like 3 little stops in Southwood and they all get off. That's hard to manage. That is hard for that person to manage. If you're gonna say it's your responsibility to make sure that child got off with an approved person, how are you supposed to technically manage 50 to 60 kids that English is not their first language And how are you supposed to know that that person picking them up is that person?
Amen.
You can't. I mean, logistically, you can't. How come there's somebody, one of the teachers or a TA, a teacher's assistant, not on that bus with her, or any bus that is full like that? So that's a stressful point for a lot of bus drivers. All right. The second, now with COVID, now you're hearing all this stuff. This is the basic. So now when COVID be brought in and we're back into school now, this is what we have to do. You have to make a seating chart, and that seating chart is there for contact tracing. I get it. Okay. But if you've only have, just say if I'm supposed to have 55 kids on my bus, only 35 ride in the morning and only 20, so you don't know who rides. And that gets back to you ride 10 times. There's some kids that haven't been on my bus once. When Matt Hoss made that announcement, all of a sudden they showed up because he didn't want to lose that spot.
Yeah.
And they ride one time a week. So,
one of the things let me mention is that working in the parking lot, I mean, one day I counted like close to 250 cars.
And seeing he's dealing with too, they're letting out at the church up there. I was going to get, and see, they stopped allowing them to use the church. But one of the things that I ran into the other day was I have parents dropping kids off now.
This is at the high school.
All of a sudden at the high school.
Okay. So you're talking about Lambs Road and Hydraulic, right?
Absolutely.
There. Right.
Yeah. And they're saying, you know what? She says, this is a first run for me because I don't want my kids in here 2 hours late. When you think about kids being 2 hours late, they're missing their whole first block.
Well,
so they're showing up 2 hours late to school
because they don't have bus drivers.
Well, so what's happening is, and then we've also got now where the bus shop is. So if you come down Lambs Road behind Almar High School and go to Jewett or Greer, that road you turn on right there, that's where the VMF is, where the shop is, where all the buses are parked for those people over there. So now parents, and one of our bus drivers, Xavier, actually, the parents are pulling right there in front of the annex or at the shop, which is extremely dangerous. Yeah. And he screamed on the radio this morning. He goes, if y'all are not going to do nothing, which it's like he's working with his lead driver, and she's doing the best she can about it. But it's like he said, I'll go talk to the sheriff myself because I don't want to see a student killed. Amen. Because of parents.
And I mean, they're running back and forth across the roads.
Right.
And I mean, I'm just yelling at them.
Jerry, they won't even let you walk from Almar High School to Jewett or Greer anymore, those kids that do the volunteer thing.
Yet they want you to play Frogger across Ryle Road.
Yes.
Yes.
And I will say, administration has been bringing that because when I'm
I'm
on the radio when I'm working traffic, and like in the afternoons, I'm the one that allows traffic out of Almar onto Lambs Road, and at the same time, our buses are coming out from the bus lot, and so I'm looking back and forth. But then I've had kids coming out and they want to cross, and I mean there are kids coming up from Jack Jewett walking at that point too, but. Parents have gotten, since they're no longer allowed to use the church there across the street, parents are now picking them up, stopping traffic.
Yes.
Or you're running back and forth across, and I stop them. I don't let them go. And it really is a dangerous scenario. And,
Well, especially on that back road, but you're talking Hydraulic is very busy in the morning.
Yes, it is.
Right there at that.
We've had several accidents there in front of the school.
But then now they said, I'm going to negate this thing. I'm going to go pull around back. And stop in the middle of the road that's going to 2 other feeder schools and just let your kid out.
How about this comment that's come in? Jerry, I'm a mom of 2 in a school in Albemarle County. Please highlight this with your panel. I have to use the bus system because both my husband and I work. We don't have the luxury of driving our kids to school because we can't make it to work on time. It seems like the haves are getting more and the have-nots are getting way less.
I know that the routing staff does everything that they can do possible to make sure that every student is afforded transportation.
Yes.
It is a privilege. It is not, the school system does not, you're allowed to go to school, but you got to get to school on your own. And I'm not saying that in a mean way, but they go above and beyond to make sure everybody has a spot on the bus. COVID has changed all this, and that's why we're going back to where I have to have assigned seats. I have to have a seating chart to make sure for contact tracing. So, but now what we've got so many kids, if all of a sudden they get on or off or the parent signs them up, then I've got to try to keep up with that. Or like I said, I have to go, sometimes I'll fill in for like Emily or bus 3 Sherry used to drive that go to Southwood. I don't know any of these kids. They hand me a manifest. I don't know who they are. So the way to combat that, they have given us now an old iPhone or a tablet.
Are you matching photos?
Well, no, we're not. What we do, we just hit the thing and tell them all to look forward, and we walk down to aisle. Because we do have video on the bus, but the video doesn't pick up incredibly enough to where it sees you were sitting next to Bob, sitting next to me. All right, so that's what we're allowed to do now. So we have to keep that for 2 weeks.
So that's the contact tracing.
That's the help with the contact tracing, because we don't have enough bus drivers. And then let's get back to that now too. I've only been there since 18, but I could probably go through all my emails of all the open routes that I got from Chuck Leathers, who is another person upstairs that runs the stuff. And what it is, you get an email saying, here's the current open routes and the drivers we need. I'm going to tell you right now, ever since I've been working since 18, it has always been 8 routes open, and you got to have 5 relief drivers and 3 or 4 athletic drivers.
Yep.
They're always down, I would say 8 to 15 drivers. Always. And I've been there, and if you ask people that have been there longer than me, they've always been like that.
And you know what's really interesting is that's true across any school board.
Well, here's
all of them are having trouble finding
my take
bus
as a
drivers.
business person on that. Okay, like you talking about the pay. All right, so to obtain your CDL,
Which you have.
which I have, and I have a CDL B, which allows me to drive things over 14,000 pounds, and then I have to get a passenger. Right, so. The starting pay in the state of Virginia for a CDL driver like that is over $18, $19 an hour. Most of these bus drivers that have been there 15, 20, 25 years are barely making, they're barely at now up to 18 bucks.
Yeah.
They started now, I think Jim Foley put out the other day, they've actually even upped the starting pay to $16.50. It was at $15.62.
Yeah.
They just recently did, not even a month ago. Now they're up to $16.50, and they're offering this $25,
$2,500.
Yeah. So, but this is what you do. Well, when I went in November 5th of 18, and the only reason I remember that because it was voting day. But out of 12 people that were in my class, only 2 of us are still working. That's Charles and Bus 176 and me. We're the only 2 from that whole class. You've got ones to where so if you say on an average of 12 people in a class every 2 or 3 months or whatever, if you're only keeping 2,
Yeah.
and what the running joke is, and it's been that way. My dad actually became a bus driver. And this was back when they just said, well, you need to show up and we'll let you know whether you have a run today. And my dad's like, I drive 28 miles to get here, but you're going to get here at 6 o'clock in the morning to that's the way they used to run it. They don't do it anymore, but how are you not going to hold people accountable? If I'm going to train you, I should offer you a good competitive salary, and I should offer you a bonus if you complete the whole school year. If you do not, then you don't get it. And then they also should be put on the spot for we're training you. If you don't work and you go work somewhere else, you're going to owe the county money back.
Amen.
Is the $2,500 bonus that's being offered to existing drivers as
Yes,
well?
yes.
Okay. Thank goodness for
Yes,
that.
Yeah.
yes. And at first I think they didn't want to do that, but then now it's changed. Because it is easier to keep your staff happy than bring new staff in.
Amen, brother.
And this is something else that I told Veranda this morning. We were having a little meeting, and Veranda's the ATS over Cindy, my lead driver. But we were just having just brain stuff, and I said, how come I have driven enough to meet enough people doing field trips and teachers and stuff like that? I bet you right now, if I really went after Coach Bob and said, hey, would you come into class and get your CDL just in case we need you, and allow him to go, especially on his side when you've got Greer and Jewett, and especially Greer or any of these smaller schools where you're basically making a round loop. You're on the bus 15, 20 minutes and you're done.
Wow.
So why not utilize staff there and give them incentives?
But Jim's offered me a job several times.
Well, no, but I'm talking about in addition to what
Right.
you do. If
Well,
any of the teachers,
and that he has.
right?
So.
Right. So it's one of those things. To me, it's like you should learn to promote from within and find people that are willing to do that. only as an as-needed basis.
You got some retired drivers watching now, so I'm going to acknowledge some folks watching. You guys are doing a tremendous job. Bill McChenzie, I have driven there on Lambs Road. It was 8 years ago, and it was bad then, especially back in the Jewett area.
Yeah.
Then he said the Chesterfield County schools raised their starting pay to over $20 an hour plus the bonus for drivers. Here's one for you from Jesse Gonzalez Jr. He says, I am proud of you guys. He says, this is my guy, Bob. And then he has something that's really to the point. He says, I work alongside these guys for the county. I may not have a job next week because of my lack of compliance, but some things are worth fighting for. I applaud Bob and Earl for having these conversations today. God bless. Show is yours on that.
Yeah, Jesse's a good man. He's one of those people that carries a big footprint there at the school too. And he has gone, he's done backflips to try to stay at the school. But his whole feeling is, he's very similar to me from the perspective that our constitutional rights are infringed upon with these demands. And it's just not right. Every one of my peers that I know that work at Almar High School that have come to me or that are sitting over there are sitting there thinking, this is just not right. Now, there are others that will look at us like we have a disease because we're not vaccinated. I don't see a lot of that, but I do feel it from time to time. But, Jesse...
Your employer should never have to ever know anything medical about you.
Amen.
Other than
My medical...
whether that you're going to, do something bad.
It's on my body and my choice.
Exactly. And they have no right to force you to do any of that.
What gets me is we hear our vice president say, and no offense to women, but, woman's body is her choice. Well, what's wrong with my body? Why isn't my body my choice? I mean, if the vaccine works, I have to be careful not to say if the vaccine works, why are you worried about me? And that's the way I feel. I mean, I'm not sick.
Well, because it changed directions 8,000 times like a paper bag in a wind.
I know.
Both you and I have agreed that we're not against vaccines.
No,
we're totally
not at all.
not. We believe in the science behind it, but we also believe in keeping yourself, building your own immunity. There is nothing.
Amen.
There is nothing out there that is pushing that, except when you start saying that, you get labeled as crazy. You get labeled as
And you're vocal about this on social media.
Oh yeah, because you know what? It's like I should have been a scientist. I am not putting myself up there with all these people like, oh, what? Yeah, you really going to keep up with a virologist? You know what? I could probably sit down enough and listen, and my reading comprehension levels are above average, and my listening skills are above average, that I could formulate great questions to ask them to make them think, because I was the kid that was putting the screwdriver in the wall socket and got shocked. And my dad said, pain's a great teacher, right?
Yeah.
So you have to understand science. It's just like everybody blames Fauci. I don't trust Fauci as far as I could throw him now because of all the stuff that's coming out.
And he keeps changing his perspective.
Right. But I understand the scientific side of it. And I understand when he says this, or if a scientist comes out, like in the very beginning, you're talking about people coming forward from third world countries that are going, well, I threw the kitchen sink and this is what I did. And it's helping me because we didn't have a vaccine then. But suddenly they were crazy.
One of the things that got to me was about a week and a half ago, I posted a post about what was going on with us and our jobs and everything, and that I was not going to take the vaccine. And all of a sudden, I probably got more hits and likes and everything and comments than almost any post I've done in quite a while. And that all of a sudden became a debate.
Yeah.
And I went, wait a minute. I kept saying this, wait a minute. I'm talking about my constitutional rights. I'm not for or against the vaccine. And you people keep trying to throw stuff in as a debate. Please stop debating. Story's done. We all know that there's science out there that can go both ways. But what about the fact that it's infringing on your constitutional rights? And that was what I was trying to get out. But yet they kept debating.
He's not anti-vax. He's saying, I choose what I do with my body.
Amen.
That's what you're saying.
Amen.
I'll throw this to Earl. Union. the path to unionization. I learned from you before the show that there is a union that exists that perhaps is not providing, my words, a ton of value. What do we do locally from a bus driver standpoint to use the power of collective bargaining?
Well, the bus, it's one of my first things I told, in Bob's when we were typing, I said, look, everybody was going, what do we need to do? What do we need to do? And it was always looking at somebody else wanting, and I'm going, look, I'm like Mel Gibson in The Patriot. It's like, I'm going to get behind a tree and I'm going to throw you axe and I'm going to keep running and I'm going to create discord and chaos. And I said, if you really want to do something, just like the people in Ottawa, Illinois just did, the 33 bus drivers called in sick.
Yeah.
Which then now all of a sudden I see this meme going, 39 bus drivers quit, and I'm going, I don't see any media verifying that.
Yeah.
But they did.
Well, that's collective bargaining.
Right, but they did call, and then that's what I said. I said, instead of waiting till the 15th, if you guys really want to do something, then let's all get together. You put them on point. You make the announcement, as of this day, we're going to call in sick.
Yeah.
Is that a plan?
No, it's not a plan.
No, but there has been talk about it. Yeah,
well, but that's my point. Is like if so when this came down, what happened was, like I said, Jim got thrown under the bus. Make a funny metaphor.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah, but so they had no procedures in place. They're running about trying to keep their drivers. He's sending everybody emails going, please, please, please don't quit. Trust me, to work on this, which we all did, and he is going above and beyond trying to make this right.
He's running ragged on it. Yeah.
But what you're doing is you've created a great deal of fear, frustration in people because they don't know whether they're going to have a job or not. And then bring your point up about like retirees. They changed the school pay changed up. This is how they lose the drivers too. So you've got people that retired and are on Virginia retirement system, right? So they moved our hours to belong to the VRS. You used to have to be an 8-hour employee to be part of the VRS, all right? So they moved that back to 6 hours. And then they moved where you get full benefits at 4.
Right.
That's great. But you know what? They lost 12 drivers that year that they implemented that, and they keep going, look what we did for you. No, you just lost 12 people. All you had to make was an amendment to this contract that says, I am currently a VRS member. I have retired. Yeah. I'm getting benefits. I'm opting out. Because what happened is you lost those 12 drivers that could drive 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
You put them down to 4 or even so, and so they're doing split shifts. It's ridiculous. Why would you lose that many people over something that all you had to say is, I'm already getting VRS. I don't want to be double dipping.
One thing about this mandate that I've noticed is that I've been in touch with human resources down at the county, and granted, the young lady I talked with was really, really helpful. But this was about a week ago that I talked to her at one point, and she's telling me, here's what you can expect, but there's nothing in writing. Mm-hmm. There's nothing to say, here's what's going to happen to you. I mean, bottom line, if you never comply, if you don't comply to the form that they ask us to fill out for the survey, if you don't comply to the vaccine, if you don't comply to the testing, you will be terminated.
So the form what he's talking about was we got a form that you went online, and it basically had these little slots, and it says, are you vaccinated? You could pick yes or no.
Right.
And then it said, which vaccine did you get and what date did you get it? It's like, well,
number one is,
why do you need to know?
Yeah.
And then on the bottom one it said, I refuse to answer. Which then at the bottom of that whole thing it says, if you refuse to answer, you will be thrown into the unvaccinated part.
Yep.
And you will have to get weekly testing. A lot of bus drivers had problems, or anybody that had, they're like, number one, why are you even making me fill something out that says right on the form that it's going to be kept in HR and put and sent to the CDC?
Right. Do you think, gentlemen, this has been an amazing show. We're about an hour and 15 minutes in.
Okay.
You guys did an excellent job here. Do you think we're at the point with the Albemarle County bus drivers where you guys need to say all together at once, we're not coming into work on Monday? We're not driving buses on Monday.
Me personally, it's like I'm like Bob, and that's the reason I'm here, because you know what? I sold my motorcycle. I love my motorcycle. It's my 5th one. I know where they make more.
And your guitars.
No, yeah, well, I did sell them two of my guitars. But my point is like I've always been taught, my dad, and when I say this, it's not because it's my dad said, you get your guns before your butter. And I don't know if he remember, that's an old saying. Mm-hmm. And what it means is guns are tangible. They are worth something. They are a great tool. And you could just say you get your shovel before your butter. I mean, if you don't want to say guns, you got something that's worth what you paid. Butter melts. Butter goes away. So that's like, shit in one hand, wish in the other. Which one are you going to? So that's why I sold my motorcycle. Because if it comes down to the point of it, and that's what I explained to him, you know what? I'll turn my 2 weeks in. But I'm going to stay here. When I send an email to Jim, and most of the stuff when we had that very first Zoom meeting, I formulated a great email. It was not emotional. It asked specific questions. I had over 25 people write back in that email that went out to all the people in transportation. Thank you, thank you, thank you. One of the best emails I've ever read. Jim answered me back. Like some of the questions were, it was like, okay, what test are we using? Are we paying for it? Is it on my time? Yeah. Stuff like that. They answered it. So I'm fine. People are like, you going to take the test? Yeah. That's all I cared about. If the county is going to pay me, but even if I was a vaccinated person, guess what? And that was offered once a week, I'm going to go take it. I'm going to do it on,
One of the things that somebody questioned me about, I was asked, and it goes back to what you're saying. Yeah, I was ready to do the spit test.
Right.
And it wasn't until Biden came on and said, you will do this, that I said no.
Which is contingency, politics aside, that was a contingency for a lot of people.
Yes. And when I saw that, I went, I'm not doing it.
Right.
And then, you go, why tell me I need to do this? I'm already willing to do the spit test, and you're forcing it on me? I'm sorry, that goes against my rights. Mm-hmm. And, some people don't understand that. They think, well, you went and got these vaccines. I said, yeah, but there's long-term data on them. And the long-term data on this is not there. There is none. And I mean, I have read, and you've probably read too, about how Pfizer employees, the upper echelon employees, are not taking their own vaccine. And I'm going, duh. And I mean, I don't know if you've seen pictures of these celebrities or even Joe Biden when he got his shot. They never took the cap off the shot. And I mean, you go, wait a minute. This is fake news.
Well, we don't know what's fake anymore.
I know, we don't.
But there's more evidence coming out of what do you call it, the mitochondrial.
Yep.
Yep. Where the
Regeneron.
Yeah. Well, no, but the younger people are getting that, and it's like, how are you? Young people have a great immune system.
Yeah.
Why do they need 2 shots? Why do they need shots the same? I'm 57. Why do they need the same amount of stuff? And as a 65-year-old that has a really low immune system, you don't, and that's causing a lot. And more of this stuff is coming out. Because I follow it, and I follow pros, like he says, I follow the pros and cons, and then I go through, and I will tell you too, I got to go to DuckDuckGo a lot of times, look up stuff, because Google.
It's a search engine, DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, I have to go because, like, if you put it in Google, you got to go through 5 or 6 pages just to even get to something that, like you're going, okay, this is real stuff.
I made the statement that, it was when Biden came out with that, but what I was questioned about was, if Trump came out with that, would you take it? And I said, well, here's the thing. Trump has been saying you should get the shot.
Yeah, he has.
He has, here recently. I said, but the truth of the matter is, no, it's my body. I'll make that choice.
Well, see if you agree with it. So what we said about the OSHA thing is they're way ahead of the OSHA standard, right? So now Biden just said 100 employees or more, we're going to do this. So what's happening now, if you look up on the OSHA site, and I actually called them and talked to them, and the woman said, no, what your county's doing is not sanctioned by OSHA right now, right? And then OSHA it's going to take 30 to 60 days for that to be implemented into the new program. So what's going to happen, just say it takes them 60 days. Are we going to get to 60 days at the beginning of the year, and are they going to terminate a bunch of people because now they can really force you more? So that's why Bob and I are standing up. It's like you got to start screaming and be squeaky and make noise.
Yep.
And goes back to what you're saying about the bus drivers. If it gets to the point,
It might be at that point.
well, that's what I'm saying. But that's why we're here to start the ball rolling. It's like if anybody wants to try to be on board and do this, like I said, in a respectful and a mature and an intelligent manner, then I'm your guy. But if we're going to be if I'm my whole everything correspondence is going to be blown up about any kind of conspiracy theory or stuff like that, that is underneath me. I'm not dealing with that.
And here's one of the things that I ended up my conversation that I had on radio the other day is, I was asked if I had anything that I would suggest people do. And quite frankly, I would say if you're up in the air about the vaccine, whether it be political or whatever, I think you need to do your research. Look at the pros and cons. I mean, I went through, I would say 20 or 30, if not more, sites looking at all the things for and against the vaccine. And also, people's, the vaccine after effects and everything. It's really bad, but yet there are people out there that are saying there are good things about it too. But the whole thing is do your own research. And when it comes to a scenario like what Earl and I are, and I've been saying this to our people that are on the blog that we use for email, you do your own research. You look at your personal needs. If you cannot financially walk away from this job or be terminated,
or sell a motorcycle or guitar.
Yeah. If you can't sell your guitar or motorcycle. But if you can't do it and it affects your personal life to the point where you are totally stressed out, you can't make that choice. And it's up to you to make the choice, what's best for me, what's best for my family. Me, I look at it, to me, God first, family second, country. And that's the way I'm approaching it. And this, it does affect me religiously. It does affect my family. And thank God I have a constitution that I need to stand up for.
And he brought up a point, too, about the effectiveness of what this, so you've got a vaccine that was made for the beta, right? It does have some efficacy against Delta. But when you started with your numbers of over 85, 90%, we'd already started having the Delta. So, yes, it does protect you from possibly being hospitalized. I can't even talk. Yeah. Or I said efficacy, though. Yeah. or dying.
That's because you read that.
Yeah. No, there's not up there. But the problem is, so all those vaccines are below 45% pretty much.
Yep.
And then you want to get into, like I brought up about people having antibodies. Well, that's not good enough. Well, wait a minute. Yes, it is. Because here, if you go through, and it's like the viral load when we talked about why are you, like OSHA says, you cannot test people. You cannot single them out. You cannot say, I'm going to test unvaccinated versus vaccinated.
Yep, that's a big.
And even though the viral load is different, but also the viral load is different in each individual person, depending on where you're at. So what I'm talking about is, so like a vaccinated person may only have a certain amount of viral load, and an unvaccinated might have between 10 and 15% more.
One of the things I had read in some of the research I've done is that if you have natural immunity and it's really strong and you're given the shot, basically, and I could be wrong on this, but what happens is that mRNA comes in and pushes that aside and uses its own immunity to fight off the virus.
It's only looking for one variant in the spike protein.
Right.
Is what
but
it's
if
doing.
It does that, it weakens your own immune system to where your immune system may and could not recover. And I have seen some of this, or I read some of this about how cancer patients are affected. And I mean, I have someone personally in my life that they're a survivor of breast cancer, and I've seen them get the vaccine, and their arm just swelled up like a balloon and couldn't go down. And they're having to wear compression sleeve. Yeah.
Let's do this, gentlemen. It's been a fantastic show. Wait till you see your notifications when you guys are off air here on social media. A lot of folks having your back and supporting you. We'll acknowledge a few. Guillermo Guerra, Patsy Peacock,
That's my sister.
Joseph Reynolds, watching the program here. You had 6 states on today's broadcast. Sherry Young, excellent show. Great talking points, God first. Daniel Pettit, God first. A number of people moved by that. Why don't we close with a final word here? Final word in perspective from you on the mandates from Albemarle County Schools and what's to expect, what we can expect from the community, and how you're going to handle those mandates in about 30 or 45 seconds.
Okay.
And then for you, Earl, I'd love to go, the bus driver route. I hate to say this because I am one that is a positive person that looks for common ground and outcomes that can lead the community forward. But you guys may be in a position with collective bargaining where you may just have to say, look, we're not going to be driving on this day, to have your voice truly heard and for this impact to really ripple within the school system. That's one man's take over here. I don't want to speak for these gentlemen. That's just me saying it because I think you guys are either being overlooked, ignored, or marginalized, or all of the above. So first, let's go with your final word if we could, Bob.
I just want to say my hat's off to the administrative staff at Albemarle High School. They've backed me 100%, and I don't mean that they backed me in the sense that they agreed with me, but they gave me my time to talk, my time to state my point and my feelings on it. I do believe this rolls all the way up, and that what needs to be done is I think a school board and Matt Haas need to take a look at how this is affecting their students from the perspective of the good people. Some of them have been watching this, and the good people they're going to be losing that will affect the outcome of how these students are. But these mandates, in the long run, go against our constitutional rights. You know, the way I look at my life is that God is in control. When it's my time to go, He'll call me home, whether I've had the vaccine or not. And nobody else, nothing else can change that.
Earl Smith, the show is yours, sir.
I would just, I would say that I agree with what he's talking about there. And, you know, we have an incredible staff there. There was, from very get-go, I felt welcomed. You know, they did all kinds of stuff for the drivers. We used to have the parties there every holiday, and we would have little meetings, and of course all that had to stop for COVID. But you've got an incredible amount of staff that does above and beyond, given to what we're doing. And I think just everybody, again, the school board threw a big wrench in all this and didn't have procedures set in place. And then the procedures they're bringing up, it's like a dog chasing its tail. You're being reactionary as opposed to trying to
Proactive.
Be proactive or visionary. It's like right now we're talking about over your side, those drivers, because they're having to do double backs and they're talking about expanding the walk zones and all this stuff. And again, that's a logistic nightmare that Renee and her staff are trying to figure out. Changing all these times in the walk zones and how far and who, and I'm like, to me that's just it's overkill to make these people try to figure that stuff out. When to me it's as simple as going, okay, why don't you let like K through, like the Gold Star through third grade leave 15 minutes early and let those drivers take them and then come back and get the other kids. Why? And the parents have to be more proactive and patient.
Amen.
Of getting these kids to school. They're going to have to help. And if some of the parents don't like it, if you happen to be a person that stays home or whatever, then come drive the bus. Come get your CDL and learn how to do it. And then if you don't want to do it after we get enough hired, then you be on substitute status. But agreeing with him, it's like stop putting all this stuff, forcing us. It's like I had a massive pulmonary embolism a couple years ago that I had 4 doctors said I should have died. They don't know how I got out of the hospital a day later. And that's because, like he said, the Lord didn't want me.
When your time.
But I'm at risk. Were you going to tell me go take one of these vaccines that could possibly give me a blood clot? No. I would rather, I've been taking my vitamin, I'm doing everything I can to keep my immune system up.
Amen.
So, and other than that, but I agree with you, it's going to come to a head. Don't let it come to a head. And I'd like to also say, and I think you
Because
agree.
you're a solutions guy.
I am.
Yeah.
That's why I agreed to do the test, you
Yeah.
know, because I'm like, look, it's not that bad. We can get through this. I'm glad you did that for us. You know, I still don't agree with singling us out and making somebody like the one lady said she's crying because everybody's watching her and her lead driver was glaring at her. You know, that you shouldn't have to do that.
You know, it's.
I got her
not
to come to
enter-
my side, and I said, "You can come and ride with me, and I'll stand there with a big John Horn hat on and a sign that says F you. I don't care. Test me all you
Yeah.
want." You know. And she started laughing. She goes, "I love you, Earl." You know. But that's the thing.
There's no reason why they can't roll back the mandates. Admit we've made a mistake, or admit you've made a mistake.
Right, and you
There's
brought
a
up the
better
fact
way.
that Albemarle County is the only one in the whole state that's doing this.
Yep.
So, hey, can we end the show now?
Please.
You know, Andre. Were you going to bring that up?
You can. So he is a driver with Seville Hop On Tours.
Yes, I do that.
I'll give the background, and then the show is yours, and we'll close this way. Andre Xavier is a pillar in the community. His beautiful wife, Charlie. I won't spill too many of the details that we're privy to. She was involved with a horrific accident. She's in
freak accident.
A freak accident.
Yes.
Yeah. She's in the burn unit at VCU right now.
Mm-hmm.
She's fighting for her life. She has made some positive recovery steps, but still has a long way
She
to
had
go.
85% burns in her whole body.
85% burns
Yeah.
on her whole body, not on her face, fortunately.
Right.
And Charlie Xavier, I am a God-fearing person. I talk about my faith often on this show. She needs our prayers.
Yes.
The power of group prayer is an amazing power.
And they have a GoFundMe page.
They have a GoFundMe page that you guys can find online. It's circulating on social media. Let's close on that.
That's all. You did perfect. That's all I wanted to make sure that we brought up that. I also like to thank John Craig, too, because he dealt with my mom when my father died and she wanted to move to town. And John,
John's Andre's business partner.
Yep, business partner there. But my mother hadn't bought a house since 1976, and to deal with her for a whole year, and then the pandemic hit. But you know, John was awesome. He just started Patch Brewery out there with Andre. So let's give them props because they're great people.
Props.
Thank
and
you, Jerry,
prayers.
for giving us
Yep,
this
and thank you.
opportunity.
My pleasure. Anytime. Multiple folks are asking for a follow-up show. Anytime you guys need a platform like this for any follow-up.
And
happy to
anybody else that
provide it.
wants to come with us,
Yeah.
please come because Jerry's really receptive to that. And don't be afraid to speak out because, like I said, we're respectful and responsible and mature about it. We're not throwing anybody to the bus. We both said administration is doing the best it can.
Yes, they are.
Now, I will throw the school board under the bus, you know, because
Amen.
that's just the way it is. You know, that to me is the same as the board of supervisors. That's
And I think if you know the school board, you know who's driving this.
Well, and you've had multiple school board members watching today. So they certainly heard.
well, then y'all
your
get
voice
your
today.
mess together and stop being like that.
We'll close the show. And anyone that's watching, Earl is exactly right. The whole point of what we're trying to do here with this network and this show is it's long-form content. The long-form content cannot be taken out of context because it's just not a 10-second soundbite or 2 sentences in a newspaper that someone cherry picks. It's long-form.
Right.
The second thing we're trying to emphasize here is, look, we can have conversation and we can agree to disagree and we can do it in respectful fashion. That's what makes this country great. Amen. Social media has divided us so much. When someone says something you don't disagree with, the initial reaction is often to attack instead of listen to learn. So that's what we're trying to do here at the network. Amen. And frankly, we will close with this. It's real talk, man. It's real conversation here on this network that impacts this community. Bob Warren, Earl Smith, Judah Wickower. My name is Jerry Miller, and this is the I Love CVille show. We'll see you tomorrow at 10:15 a.m. Take care.
Yay.
Thank you for listening. That was great. I got to use your little boys room real quick.
We went 90.